Okay, welcome to the virtual college exploration for all Missouri students, sponsored by the Missouri Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and your microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of the many sessions being held over the next couple weeks, so be sure to check out the full schedule at moacac.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week or so at that same website, again, moacac.org. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is actually Tim Eggleston. I am filling in for my colleague who was unable to make it last minute. So see the name Patrick Elmore on there. I won't get upset if you refer to me as Patrick. He's a nice enough guy. But my name is Tim Eggleston. I'm an admissions counselor with the University of Missouri. Tonight's presentation, we're going to walk you through kind of all of what we think, everything that you need to know regarding Mizzou. Most importantly, we want to make sure that we answer questions as we go. I'll try to monitor that Q&A and then make sure that we address any questions as we move along, but I'll probably just try to periodically stop and check in and see whether that Q&A has some questions. But additionally, if we for some reason don't get through every single question that is there, we will follow up with an email after tonight's presentation. Once we have everyone's registration information, we'll send out a confirmation email where you can begin to communicate with us that way as well. So in addition to questions that you may have about general admissions, majors, things like that, I am a Mizzou grad myself, so I am always happy to talk about my own college search and other questions related to that. So we will go ahead and jump right in. A little bit about us. If you're not familiar, we are located in Columbia, Missouri, smack dab in the middle of the state, about 2 hours from both St. Louis and Kansas City. Columbia is your quintessential college town. About 120,000 people that live in Columbia, not including our college students, which come from Mizzou, Columbia College, and Stevens College. It really just does have an energy to it. And I think a lot of convenience in terms of living in a college town. So if you're standing on Mizzou's quad, in fact, if I go back a slide, you can see, actually I'll go ahead a slide, you can see the quad where those columns are right there. If you're standing between two of those columns, you're only about a 3-minute walk from downtown Columbia. So everything really is within walking or biking distance. You just cross the street from Mizzou's campus and you're right into the heart of the action. So shopping, restaurants, live music venues, grocery store, coffee, ice cream, get some pizza at Shakespeare's, burgers at Booch's, a bunch of really great Columbia local spots. If you love the outdoors, there's actually a trailhead right across the street from Mizzou's campus called the MKT Trail, which actually links up eventually with the Katy Trail, which is a trail system that runs across the state of Missouri. And a couple of really cool festivals that I'll name among many. We have the Roots and Blues and Barbecue Festival every single September. Great live music, a lot of folk, Americana, blues bands, and delicious barbecue. And then we are actually home to the True False Film Festival, which is one of the largest documentary film festivals in the entire country. So really cool cultural events, lots of things, like I said, within walking distance and only a couple hours from 2 major cities. When you start to zoom in on Mizzou's campus specifically, we have about 30,000 students total. We draw students from every single county in the state, all 50 states, and over 100 different countries from across the globe. The University of Missouri, one of the many things that makes it unique is the fact that Mizzou is the land-grant institution serving the state of Missouri, but we are also the public research university for the state of Missouri as well. Oftentimes, states kind of break those out on 2 different campuses, whereas in Missouri, you have them both in one place. So what that means from a student experience standpoint is you're going to have a ton of resources and opportunities. Those are the words that I really find myself using the most when I talk to students and families about Mizzou, is resources, opportunities, and flexibility, you can really make your Mizzou experience what you're wanting it to be. When you see where we draw our students, obviously we are very heavily represented in the Midwest, Missouri, Illinois, the state of Chicago, but we draw really students from all over the country. We have a lot of students from Texas and California, Minnesota. We'll eventually kind of show you where a lot of our students end up going when they graduate as well. In terms of our academic profile, our average ACT score from year to year has been a 26. Average SAT is usually around a 1230. We don't have as many SAT test takers to kind of provide an accurate sample, so that's why we don't list it here on this site. But we do draw a lot of really bright and talented students. We've had some big changes, as many colleges and really, for that matter, high schools have encountered. One of which is our admission requirements. So I'm going to first kind of walk students through our traditional admission criteria and then our new test optional policy. So up until this year, these were our admission criteria. We'd first look at these 17 core high school classes. If a student's missing one of those core classes, that's not going to keep them from being admitted to Mizzou. If they're missing a 4th year of English, we'll look to see did they take a 3rd year of social studies or science. We look at every application individually. From there, we look at a sliding scale using a student's standardized test score and either their high school class rank or their high school core GPA. So you can see using both of those scales, the higher a student's test score, the lower their either class rank or their core GPA can be. The students that are attending a non-ranking high school, if you look at that core GPA column, one thing to note, core GPA is not the high school transcript GPA. It's actually calculated by the admissions office using just the core classes, so math, English, social studies, science, so on and so forth, on a flat 4.0 scale. So it does tend to be a little bit lower than that high school transcript GPA. So we are super scoring this year on standardized test scores. We know many students haven't had the chance to test or test more than once. So we do also have, as I mentioned, a test optional admission criteria policy that we've put in place. Students that apply test optional will be evaluated holistically using their high school transcripts. And then we also will ask students to submit a personal statement and a resume. And students can submit both that personal statement and resume through their student status page, which they'll be given access to once they've submitted their application for admission. Students that are applying through our traditional admission criteria with a test score are probably going to have a decision back from the University of Missouri in 2 to 3 weeks, whereas students applying test optional, that will take us a little bit longer, and we'll begin releasing decisions probably around the 4-week mark to give you kind of a conservative estimate starting October 1st. Students that apply test optional, but are later able to or would like to send test scores are able to do that. So you're not tied to that test optional policy if later you choose that you'd like to submit those test scores. There are 2 ways that students can apply for admission. Students can begin applying as early as August 1st of their senior year. The 2 ways that students can apply is through Mizzou's online application, which students can access on our admissions website, and students can also submit an application through the Common application as well. So, like I said, like many colleges and universities, lots of changes here, but just know if you have any questions, you can always reach out directly to your admissions counselor. We have admissions counselors that live across the state of Missouri and across the country, so we can make sure that you get connected to start building that relationship. And if you have some specific questions about your application, just let us know and we'd be happy to talk you through that. In terms of resources and opportunities, I know one thing for myself that was really important to me was just having a lot of options. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. Many students are probably in the same boat. Some of you maybe have a pretty good idea. On the flip side of that, I really had no clue what I wanted to study in high school. So I liked that I had so many different options in terms of majors. If you're unsure of what it is that you want to study, Mizzou, we have a great Discover program, which is really more or less a proactive approach to your career search. So we like to say it's totally fine to be still deciding, but you can't just expect to wake up one day and know what it is that you'd like to do. It really comes from a lot of informational interviewing, job shadowing, and doing some research on your own time. So that Discover program is through our Career Center, which I'll mention here in a little bit. And that program is really geared towards possibly students taking a career explorations course. A lot of that course is set up to do just that, informational interviewing, job shadowing, so students can begin to kind of navigate what their options are and whether or not it might be a good fit. In a normal year, we would have larger lecture style classes in some classrooms on Mizzou's campus. We have 30,000 students, but we do maintain an 18-to-1 student to faculty ratio. Most classes will be around 30 students. As I mentioned, in a normal year, students will have lecture style classes due to COVID-19. There are social distancing measures in place currently that don't have larger lectures. There's limitations on the number of students in each class, but in a normal year, I'd say about 80% of your classes from first year through fourth year would have, 25 to 35 students. The other 20%, those larger introductory courses, those lecture halls, oftentimes have lecture 2 days a week, and then 1 day a week you would have a supplementary lab or a discussion group. As students are getting more and more into their major, that's really where you see that class size start to shrink. So for myself, once I had applied and gained admission to the True-Last College of Business, the upper level of the True-Last College of Business, my junior year, my largest class was, I think, about 35 or 40 students. Most of them were 15 to 20. So you really do see that class size start to shrink quite a bit. Our honors college, if you're looking for a way to maybe shrink some of those classes right off the bat, we do have a fantastic and, in fact, the oldest honors college in the nation. The honors college is usually described as a smaller liberal arts college feel within the larger university. It's open to all majors. It is a very, very flexible program. Students can get to take unique courses that are oftentimes taught by professors, multiple professors in different areas. You have access to a second advisor. You have early registration for courses. We do have 2 honors college dorms on campus that students have the option of living in. They do not have to, but it is an option available to students who want to live around other students who are also in the honors college. And we do have some unique scholars and fellows programs where students are immediately paired up with a professor who is doing research in a field that is also of interest to them. And students will begin researching alongside of that professor and eventually kind of leading those research or artistry programs. So it can be a fantastic way to kind of shrink down the size of the campus. It's not as if every single class that a student takes is going to be an honors college course. Usually it's 1 to 2 a semester. The honors college does require a separate application after a student applies. They are currently still requiring a test score for admission. If that by chance changes anytime soon, we will be sure to let you know. And I'll also give them a plug at the end in case you're wanting to learn a little bit more about Mizzou's fantastic honors college. I mentioned at the outset, Mizzou being the public research university for the state of Missouri. And one of the many things I think Mizzou hangs its hat on is the fact that all of our professors are doing research in their field. And they enlist the help of undergraduates in doing that research. Students can earn credit through research, can earn stipends through their research, and many students actually go on to be published next to the professor that they work with on that research. So maybe it's not something that you thought a whole lot about in high school, but undergraduate research is a fantastic experience of problem solving. It looks great on postgraduate professional work, applying to graduate school, applying for a real world job. That type of experience on a resume is really going to stand out. And even if you don't end up doing research, you're going to know that your professor is actively trying to solve an issue within the world, whether that's a really well-known issue or something very, very specific within a plant cell. It matters. And I think that's cool to know that you're going to be able to learn alongside folks that are actively trying to pursue what isn't already known. If you're wanting to know a little bit more about undergraduate research at Mizzou, you want to see the type of research that our undergraduates are doing, you can actually visit undergradresearch.missouri.edu. we'll have a sampling of a ton of different opportunities for students and what the type of research students are doing. So research is just one of the many ways that students pursue hands-on learning. I think that is one thing we want students to come to Mizzou, not just earn a diploma, but actually earn a fantastic resume while they're here. And in large part, that is done through what we call the Missouri method. That Missouri method was originally coined by the School of Journalism, but has been adapted, or excuse me, it has been adopted across Mizzou's campus. And that is essentially learning by doing. So we know college is a major, major investment, a financial investment, and a time investment. So we want students to have professional experience by the time that they finish. So whether that's through research, whether that's through an internship, you're going to see opportunities in all of our different majors. I'm going to give you a few examples. I'll start with the School of Journalism. The University of Missouri is home to 15 professional media outlets, including the NBC affiliate news station and Columbia Missourian, one of two community newspapers in central Missouri. The KOMU is the only university-owned and operated NBC affiliate news station. The reporting, editing, and producing is done in large part by broadcast journalism students. That's built into the curriculum. Our College of Business has a 100% internship placement rate. It is built into the curriculum to where students are given the tools to go out and find those internship opportunities and secure them by the time that they graduate. Our College of Education students do observation in their first year. By their second year, they're working as an assistant in a classroom, maybe teaching or instructing for one lesson out of the day. By the time they get to their senior year, they're doing an entire day's worth of student teaching in one of the participating school districts, which Mizzou has about 37 partner school districts across the state of Missouri. So tons and tons of opportunities. And that's really what we want students to leave Mizzou with, as I mentioned, is that resume. It's one thing to earn the diploma, but it's a resume that's going to make you competitive. All that being said, we know that students don't just operate in a vacuum and get to Mizzou on their own, or actually matriculate through Mizzou on their own. We have a lot of support services available to students, including the Student Success Center. So the Student Success Center is where students can go for small group tutoring opportunities. The Student Success Center also hosts tutoring opportunities in all of the different residence halls on campus for a variety of first-year courses that many first-year students end up taking. They have a writing lab, so if a student is wanting to get some feedback on a paper that they're getting ready to turn in a week or two, they can do that through the Student Success Center. That's also where the Career Center is located. So as I mentioned, students that are maybe not 100% sure of what it is that they want to study, or students that end up changing their major too. We have a lot of students that will double major, earn a minor, and take a number of different pathways to get there. That Career Center also helps with resume development, mock interviews. They help you with your LinkedIn profile. They'll actually even take your LinkedIn headshot for you as well. So lots of both academic and professional support, but also social support centers. The Gaines Oldham Black Culture Center, LGBTQ Resource Center, Multicultural Center, RSVP Center, and Women's Center. They can all act as homes away from home for students that are seeking that. So all of these combined, I think, lead to some great outcomes for students. This past year, we set a record retention rate at 90%. Which is really, really strong for a school our size. And that's not by accident. We have early intervention retention strategies to ensure that when students need help, they get it early. Our early alert system, if a student doesn't do as well on their first exam, that automatically is going to alert their professor, their academic advisor, to schedule a meeting, talk about how a student prepared for that exam, how they can prepare differently, getting them set up through some tutoring options in the Student Success Center. Tons of ways that we want to make sure that students feel supported while they're on campus. And additionally, a 92%, roughly 93% successful career outcome rate, which refers to the students that are full-time employed within 6 months of graduating, enlisted in the military, or in graduate or professional school. So those are the types of numbers that we really point to, that we're really proud of, because that's essentially what the investment that you're making of time and money is going to allow students to pursue when they graduate. There are some really, really great results. You can see just a sampling of the institutions that hire. Usually, I think it's at least 5 graduates, Mizzou graduates every single year, pretty well represented across the board, education, agriculture, business, communications, journalism, accounting, engineering, public service. So really across the board, you can see that many of these companies actually participate in the variety of job fairs that are hosted through the different academic departments too. So it's not as if students are needing to, get in a car or jump on a plane to go and interview. Obviously, a lot of it is being done virtually, but also when we do have in-person job fairs, many of these companies come to recruit our students. You can see just another sampling of some famous alums once again across the board, pretty well represented. Business, education, journalism, agriculture. And now I want to talk a little bit about that investment. So Mizzou, we did just finalize our brand new scholarships. So we took us a little bit of time to finalize some things, but if you visit our admissions website, admissions.missouri.edu, and you click on scholarships, you can see our updated scholarship graph or matrix. Students that are applying test optional will be considered for scholarships holistically. We probably will not begin awarding those scholarships for test optional students until the spring semester. So it's just going to kind of depend on the number of applications that come in this fall as to how we determine those scholarships. But we do have some new scholarships that factor more both test score and high school GPA in there. So if you visit that website, you can see our new and updated scholarship offerings. A few things that are included in your cost of attendance at Mizzou that I did want to make sure that I mentioned. First and foremost is a student activity fee. This fee goes towards funding for various student organizations, but it also pays for students to attend concerts, guest lecturers, stand-up comedians at either a free or reduced rate. Our location really benefits us smack dab between Kansas City and St. Louis, so we have our fair share of big time shows that stop in for a night or two before continuing on in either direction. And I mentioned it funds our 600 plus student organizations. So that's something I really appreciated about Mizzou, is the fact that I could navigate pretty comfortably a lot of the academic offerings and eventually chose a great major for me through the help of the Career Center on campus. But also I knew that I could continue to do the things that I really loved to do in high school. You don't have to be a Division I athlete to take part in rec sports or club sports at Mizzou. You don't have to be a music major to be involved in any of the 20 bands, choirs, or ensembles that we have on campus. Same thing with theater. We have 10 to 12 theater productions every single year. You don't need to be a theater major to take part in those. In political science, we're only about a 20 to 25-minute drive from Jefferson City. Don't have to be a political science major to be involved in student government or to have an internship through our Civic Leaders Internship Program, a program run through the state capitol. So you have a lot of flexibility, but even things that aren't even on your radar. We have a concrete canoe club. We have a Quidditch team. So if you visit getinvolved.missouri.edu, you can see a comprehensive list of all of those 600 different student organizations. Your tuition also funds your membership to the Student Rec Center, fantastic resource on campus. Several years ago, the university repurposed the old basketball field house into a state-of-the-art rec center facility. You have indoor, outdoor track, 3 weight rooms, a room full of ellipticals and treadmills, a rock climbing wall, basketball courts, racquetball courts. There are even Tiger X classes that you can take, which essentially are kind of rooms built to adjust as exercise trends change. So, a while back it could have been like yoga and Pilates, but now it's maybe more kind of an Orange Theory type class. So students can kind of adapt and change their exercise routines as trends change as well. But a fantastic place just to study too. There's lots of little nooks and crannies where students can, plop down with a book and their notes to kind of maybe review for a class in between classes, maybe get some exercise in there as well. But a fantastic resource. Another thing that is going to be included in a student's cost of attendance is going to be their living expenses. We have 24 different dorms on Mizzou's campus. Every single one of them houses first-year students. there are a number of different ways that students can begin getting involved through their rec center. In a traditional year, we have all of our first year students move in about a week before school starts into their dorm. And that entire week is spent essentially meeting other students, getting involved in welcome week activities. So that's really where the community building really starts. And all of our dorms are newly renovated or newly built within the last 15 or so years. So you can take virtual tours on our housing website, housing.missouri.edu, if you're wanting to see some of the nitty gritty about, hey, which freshman interest groups or learning communities are located in here, so you can actually live around other students that have a similar interest or major. You can see where it's located on campus. You can see where the nearest dining hall is. So you have a lot of really great options in that regard. To give you kind of a sense of how those renovations look, on either side, those two bigger buildings, those are both dorms on campus that were built in the 60s, but about 5 years ago were renovated entirely on the inside and are fantastic. That building right there in the middle, that's actually one of 4 dining halls on campus, or all you choose to eat facilities. These are just a few examples of, like I said, those learning opportunities where you can actually live on the same floor as about 15 to 20 students that have a similar interest or major. So that can be a great way to kind of give you that first group on campus. It's not to say that you're going to be like best pals with every single student in there, but it can be a great way to kind of get to know some people that have at least a few things in common related to your major. So definitely be considering that if Mizzou stays on your radar. I mentioned dining earlier. We have actually 29 dining locations. Like I said, about 4 all-you-care-to-eat facilities, but a few years ago, Mizzou started allowing students to kind of customize their meal plan to where students could use their meal plan at Starbucks on campus, not just in the dining halls, but you could also use it at the student center. If anybody has been to Mizzou Student Center, there's kind of like a food court area. So lots of really great options for dining on Mizzou's campus. I did want to kind of just highlight a few, and I'll do a review at the end, but just did want to kind of highlight some big dates to kind of keep on your radar. As long as, if you're interested in Mizzou, as long as you're periodically just kind of checking your student status page, which is kind of your link to see where you are in the application in the enrollment process, you'll be able to start checking that as soon as you submit an application. We do send a lot of emails to kind of remind students. We know you're getting a lot of emails these days, but if you're ever in doubt, you can always email our office or call our office and we can make sure that you're getting the information that you need. The October 1 is when the FAFSA opens, the free application for federal student aid. So students that are in their senior year are encouraged to start submitting their FAFSA on October 1st. December 1 is a big scholarship deadline. Many of our competitive scholarships will have a December 1st priority deadline. So we recommend that students apply by November 15th of their senior year in order to give themselves enough time to turn around and work on those other additional scholarships that students can qualify for by submitting a couple different separate applications through the scholarship universe. Some of our competitive scholarships do still require a standardized test score. So just keep that in mind. January 1 is our FAFSA priority deadline. And then usually in May is around the time that students will begin making those big final decisions. But the clear picture of what it truly costs to attend an institution is usually not made available until March. So that's typically the time of year when colleges will send you a final financial aid offer letter, which will include scholarships that you've earned, grants, federal work study, and then also any student loan opportunities you may want to consider as well. So you'll be able to fairly compare that usually in the spring of your senior year. And as I mentioned, Mizzou, we will super score on standardized tests and we'll accept those anytime through June and July of your senior year. Just a few more things that I wanted to kind of go through, and then we'll kind of make sure that we address any questions that are coming through. But Mizzou is the home to the longest continually running homecoming celebration in the country. It's a really big tradition on Mizzou's campus, and certainly it's kind of, I always say, take your high school homecoming and put it on steroids, basically. It turns into not just a week-long celebration, but about a month-long celebration. Black and gold everywhere. All of the businesses in downtown Columbia, businesses and restaurants, basically turn over their storefronts to Mizzou students, and they decorate the district in black and gold. There are campus decorations and skits performed by various student organizations on campus. There are step shows, barbecues, a big parade the morning of the football game, but there's also a really big service component to it as well. Mizzou actually runs one of the largest student-run blood drives in the entire country, paired with the American Red Cross. We also students put in hundreds of thousands of hours of community service over that month of homecoming. So it's not just about football. Certainly football is kind of the cherry on top. After that big parade in the morning, you have that football game later that afternoon or that evening. Mizzou is a home to SEC athletics. So big time college sports certainly center around a lot of game days and get to play some fantastic competition. Students can purchase what are called student season ticket combos, greatly discounted. I think it's about $150 to get into all of the home football games and home men's basketball games. Any other sporting events, you just need to show your student ID for the most part. So whether that's women's soccer or softball or men's baseball, you show your student ID into those sports and you're basically in. Students can also participate themselves if they're interested, like I said, rec sports and club sports, but there's a lot of fantastic opportunities as it relates to athletics at Mizzou. Did want to just kind of once again review that timeline. We have, as long as you're regularly just kind of checking in with us, I would say our admissions office tends to over communicate a lot of information. We want to make sure that students are informed and getting the information that they need. So anytime that students do have questions, they're going to be able to check in with us and see where they are in the application process. As I mentioned, the application becomes available August 1st of a student's senior year. We recommend that students apply by November 15th in order to meet our December 1st priority deadline for many of our competitive scholarships. We talked a little bit about the FAFSA opening and the priority deadline. As we get into the spring, that's really where you're going to start to hear from colleges and universities regarding orientation, housing preferences. So at Mizzou, our housing process is on a preference model. So students can begin letting us know which part of campus where they'd like to live, if they have a particular roommate, if they'd like to live in the honors college housing, suite style or community style. So students can begin to communicate with us about that type of information as we get into the winter and the spring semester. As I mentioned, usually the financial piece of college is much clearer as we get into the spring. So just stay tuned. We will let you know of all those dates and deadlines. And then usually, like I said, in May is typically the time when students are making those final college decisions. All of that being said, we certainly don't want you to feel that this is the only way that you can get information about Mizzou. We have a lot of really great ways for students to learn more about additional resources at Mizzou. We did actually just get a question coming through. What are the different housing costs? So that's a great question. You can see an estimated cost on our scholarship, or excuse me, on our financial aid website and a lot of different places on our housing website. The costs really vary depending on whether a student lives in a more what we call like a traditional college style dorm. So that's or more often called community style. That's where it's like you and a roommate, and then you actually share a bathroom with the wing of the floor that you're living on. So those bathrooms, I know sometimes I get some concerned looks when I talk about community style living, but those community style bathrooms are cleaned professionally every single night. Students are, everybody's on a different schedule in college. Not everybody starts class at 8 o'clock in the morning, so you're not waiting on sinks or showers. The suite style dorms, that's where it's you and a roommate, and then usually there's another two suite mates living on the other side of a bathroom that joins the two. So kind of what we would call like Jack and Jill style dorms. Those are going to be more expensive, generally speaking, than a traditional community style hall. On your housing preference form, you can actually preference and kind of rate your preference in terms of costs of housing. So that will definitely factor into your housing assignment, knowing that information. The quoted price that you'll see on our cost sheet and on our financial aid website, housing website, that is the average cost for your standard, like traditional style dorm, and the typical meal plan that students choose too. So that number includes your housing, but also does include your meals for that year. We do have a 1-year campus living requirement as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. So all of our dorms have first-year students living in them. About 94% of our first-year students live on campus. So it's not as if you're going to be the only freshmen or students are going back and forth from home on the weekends. Students do hang out and socialize on the weekends. After that 1-year living requirement, students do have the option to stay on campus. I'd say a good number of students opt to move into an apartment or a house off campus with friends or other people that they know at Mizzou too. So good question. I did want to say too, in terms of housing specifically, kind of tying into this slide, we do have obviously a lot of great virtual offerings. But we do have currently in-person visits available for anyone that is interested in actually visiting Mizzou in person. We have limited things that we can show students on campus, but we can show students a sample sort of mock dorm room so they can kind of see how one is usually set up and the space that you have there. Students can get a tour of the rec center. So you get a full campus tour in addition to kind of an information session that you can attend. And then if you're wanting to learn more about a specific major, so if you want to learn more about the School of Journalism, the Sinclair School of Nursing, the College of Engineering, True-Last College of Business, any of those, you can actually schedule an in-person or a virtual visit at that website. If you don't want to come for an in-person tour, we do actually have both an interactive map that students can kind of click around and videos pop up that they can use to kind of get a sense of campus. But also we do have actual like FaceTime campus tours where you can actually FaceTime or Zoom mobile with a current Mizzou student, a tour guide who can give you a tour that way as well if you aren't able to physically come to campus. And then the last thing I would definitely stress, as much as I love to talk about Mizzou and I could go on and on and on, I think it's really important for students and families to try to have conversations with current students. So current students were the ones that were just standing in your shoes, kind of trying to make a big college decision. So you can ask them those questions. Hey, how did you know Mizzou was the right fit for you? What did you get involved with? There are 30,000 students on campus. How did you make it feel a lot smaller? How did you pick your major? What's your favorite thing about Mizzou? Maybe what's something that you would change about Mizzou? Those types of questions I think are best answered by current Mizzou students. So I'd strongly encourage you, if you have any interest, we have current student panels, question and answer sessions every single week. And then certainly if you come for a campus visit, your tour guide will be a current student as well. So like I said, hopefully this isn't the last that you'll learn about Mizzou. We're really here to kind of answer any questions and get you connected to folks across Mizzou's campus. So let me make sure that I provide our contact information here. So this is our contact information. You can basically know that any Mizzou admissions rep, depending on where you're tuning in from today, it's going to be their email. It's going to be asktheirname@missouri.edu. So like I said, my name's not Patrick, my name's Tim. My email address is asktim@missouri.edu. I'm actually the St. Louis based admissions counselor for the University of Missouri, but we have admissions counselors that basically are responsible for various parts of the state of Missouri, assigned to various different regions of the state of Missouri and various cities across the country as well. So please let us know if you have any questions. You can either post them here in the chat for the next few minutes, but certainly feel free to get in touch with us to ask questions, and you can always head to our visit website, visit.missouri.edu, to schedule either a virtual option or, as I mentioned, we do have in-person options. I don't think I mentioned it, but we do, we are about only scheduling those in-person visits about 3 to 3.5 weeks out, just for social distancing purposes and being able to control the number of the size of those tour groups to about 2 to 4 people max. So just keep that in mind if you are interested in visiting the campus. But the last few things that I did want to mention as well. We know that there are, it can be very easy to maybe feel a little burnt out with a lot of these virtual offerings. So I think opportunities like this one, StriveScan, we also are hosting various opportunities to kind of learn more about multiple schools at once. So just let us know how we can best serve you in answering your questions and how you can learn more about various colleges and universities. But we've got just a couple more minutes. If you have any other questions, like I said, we will follow up with an email probably once we have everybody's contact information, maybe in a week or so. So if you don't have any questions now, but you think of one later, you can certainly email us and we will certainly follow up with you later. But I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us this evening to learn a little bit more about Mizzou. Go Tigers.
Thanks so much for your time tonight, Tim. That was great information for everybody. I appreciate you sharing.
Absolutely.
And taking the place of Patrick tonight. So I'm sure he
Yes.
appreciates you as well. So I will go ahead and share my screen and share just a few things with our guests. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank you all for joining us tonight. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback that you could provide. And again, this was just one of many sessions that are being hosted this week and next week. So be sure to sign up for additional sessions at MOACAC.org. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this particular session's recording, as well as all the other sessions recordings at MOACAC.org. We again thank you for being here tonight, and we hope you'll take advantage of future sessions as well. Thanks, Tim. Bye now.